I gotta finish making dinner, but I also wanted to talk about some music stuff. I'm just making pesto pasta, so it's really nothing super involved. But a couple of days ago, James Blake went onto Twitter to talk about the current state of music delivery, discovery, and consumption. His major point really was that if we want good quality music, someone has to pay for it, and streaming isn't doing it. Because if you look at it, the math goes to like $5 per album on Spotify. That's not really worth it when you consider you can buy an album physically or sell an album physically for $10 to $20. So if artists aren't getting money from streaming, where else are they going to get it from? Usually from tour and merch, but it's also getting more expensive to tour, so these artists aren't able to go outside. And also we've seen so many tours get canceled because of low ticket sales. Like, people aren't willing to go out and spend money on artists as much anymore. Now, beyond that, people will usually get funding from labels and just other investors, essentially, to make music. But these people are less willing to invest in somebody nowadays because it's usually tens of thousands of, if not millions of dollars to invest in someone to make good quality music. Like, why would they do that when they could just as easily go and find somebody who's making basic generic music that's also performing pretty well, like, for way less? Like, it doesn't really make sense for them to invest that time and money in something that's just too expensive, right? All they care about is profits. So that's why everyone goes to streaming. And streaming is not bad. Like, streaming is good at the end of the day. Like, it is a great way for people to discover new artists, new music, and basically, just explore it, broaden your horizons, right? But the problem is, not everyone is going to then further help those artists that they find. Like, not everyone is going to go to their band camp. Not everyone's going to go to their shows. Not everyone's going to buy merch. Like, Spotify definitely has been pushing merch a lot more and pushing ticket sales within the app more, but that's still not, like, there's not that level of connection by a lot of people, and realistically, it's not surprising. Like, money's tough right now anyways. So what do artists do? They go more direct to consumer. Now, a lot of artists came out in support of James Blake when he mentioned this online, but no one really pushed for anything at that time. Like, no one really said, oh yeah, this is what we should do, whatever. Except for Kanye. Kanye, however you may feel about him, is still a very popular artist. One of the most popular artists, arguably. And, he's going around trying to sell Vultures to people, but, he's having his own issues because of the things that he's been saying. So there's been some screenshots of conversations between Kanye and others where he's essentially, quoting what James Blake is saying and finding, like, we should just go direct to consumer and sell the album or Vultures 2 and Vultures 3 on Yeezy.com, which honestly, probably not a bad idea because Kanye can afford to fully run his own site and has people that are able to do that for him as well. And we saw on Super Bowl Sunday, Kanye ran that ad for Yeezy.com and sold like 19 million from that one Super Bowl ad. That's crazy. It was literally just an iPhone video. So that's, enough evidence that people are willing to go and spend money on a Kanye album, then, just buy it from him directly. Like, I can see there's enough of an overlap there. Like, I would not be surprised if people are willing to do that. And I think he even mentioned, he's like, yeah, we can easily get millions of sales. Like, why would we do that? I did also see that he mentioned, oh, well, maybe you should come to streaming eventually because, they did do a poll on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, where people are like, I would buy it, but also I would rather just buy it on or listen to it on streaming, which totally valid. So, there are artists out there that are willing to do something like this. Now, the problem is Kanye is in a position that he can do this and he can afford to do this. A lot of other artists, they're not able to do that, really. Like, yes, they can go direct to consumer first, and that's what a lot of people do. I know plenty of people who do that. Like, a lot of the people that I associate myself with do that. And for them, I think it does pretty well. But you have to also understand that with that comes its own difficulties. You're limiting yourself in terms of discovery. But that's kind of where the newer platforms, I mean, Bandcamp's not that new. And Bandcamp is honestly my favorite way to support artists because I feel like they do the best cut. It's like 85% to the artist. And plus they have Bandcamp Fridays pretty regularly. So, these artists are still getting a good amount of money. More so than, if they were to just deal with streaming. But again, not every artist is able to do that. Not everyone feels comfortable doing that. Because, at the end of the day, you're limiting your fan base. Like, you're limiting your growth, right? So that's why a lot of artists do eventually put their music on streaming as well. I think it's important to do that. I think it's very important to do that. But, not everyone is going to do that. I don't know what the best timeline for it is. I've seen anywhere between a week to almost 2 months, sometimes even years, to be honest. I think the God Bahim or I'm drawing a blank now. But yeah, I think like people like the God Bahim are an example of that, and like Rock Marciano and them. Like, they're able to go and put their music out on their website and then eventually have it come to streaming. And it makes sense, right? Because that way you are still maximizing your actual dollar income, because the people who really want to buy your music are going to buy your music. But then you're able to also further those streams or your income by streaming. And when you're streaming, you're getting way more just new listeners. I don't know what the best way to do anything is. I'm just a guy who's talking about music. But from my basic clown math that I did, artists really aren't making that much money. And this is something that I kind of alluded to earlier on. For example, I looked at Schoolboy Q on Spotify. He has 11.5 million monthly listeners. And to be considered a monthly listener, you have to have listened to at least one song by the artist in the last 28 days. So over the last 28 days, Schoolboy Q has had 11.5 million listeners, like unique listeners. That, as far as the math goes, if we are to consider 1,500 streams as an album sale, basically equates to about 7,600 album sales. And with, again, the clown math, we get about, $36,000 per month for Schoolboy Q, which, all things considered, doesn't sound too bad. And this is also assuming that he's taking full cut of everything. Obviously, other people are involved and get money. But, if we're just to look at it on the surface, that sounds pretty good, right? But when you take that same number of, 7,600 albums, and go and look at how much he's selling his physical for. He's selling his physical album for $14.99 or $14. He would be making closer to 106,000, which, considerably more. And even if we were to look at it like on iTunes, his album is currently selling for $10, which would bring it to 76,000. Artists are losing a lot of money. And obviously there is a point at which, yes, the sales are going to be more limited. You're not going to get that much money because sales aren't that consistent, right? You're going to get a big burst of sales when the album comes out and then kind of trickles off after that. But, that's still more than what you would get with streaming alone. I'm sure there's more math that can be done in this and, finding different ways to fully understand it. But, at the end of the day, you're losing out on sales. But, with all that said, I don't have a solution. I don't have the best solution. I don't know what we need to do to help artists grow and help them succeed. I just know that as of how things are right now, streaming is not it. Obviously, if you can, spend the money, help the artist, because, at the end of the day, like, if you want them to keep making music and music that you enjoy, I mean, I assume that they're making music you enjoy if they're listening or you're listening to them regularly on streaming services. You want to see them succeed, right? So, you know, go buy their music, support them on tour, whatever you can do. But yeah, as of right now, I don't know what better to do. But what I did see as I was writing everything for this was that Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib mentioned and introduced this new act called the Living Wage for Musicians Act, where essentially each stream is going to be boosted to a payout of a minimum of 1 cent per stream. So kind of where Tidal and Apple Music are currently. So for platforms like Spotify, they're going to have to pay way more than they have been. But the benefit of this is that artists that aren't getting that many streams are going to get more money. And I think that's beneficial for everyone. Obviously, there's probably more to it than that. I didn't look into it further. I just saw it on Twitter as I was doing work for this. So I thought it was very conveniently timed. But yeah, I think James Blake is right. We do need to support our artists, and we need to find a way to do so. And I think what people are doing right now, the shift towards direct-to-consumer with platforms like Even and Bandcamp is helping. I think it's making a major push and improvement in these artists' lives. Like, they're getting way more money. But anyways, this is basically done. I'm done. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think of this whole thing. Is James Blake right? Is Kanye crazy? Am I just a bad cook? And anyways, while you're down there, also like and subscribe to see more rambling content and just weird shit like this. Thank you for watching, and please stay safe out there.